Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Take. I'm your host, Dale Kurschner. One Take is a 10-minute discussion in which one CEO provides his or her take on the most pressing business and economic issues of the day and how they're affecting his or her organization, what they're doing about it, what's working, what they're still trying to figure out, and where they're going from here. This is also called One Take because this is a continuous live discussion where we'll make some blunders like the one I just made, and it has not been edited. This One Take presentation today is being brought to you by Platinum Group, which more than any firm in the upper Midwest has helped companies out of troubling situations for more than 40 years. So I want to thank our sponsors, Platinum Group. Today, I'm pleased to introduce to you the the CEO and chairman of Faribault Woolen Mill, Paul Grangaard. Paul also has been the founder and CEO of Circle Rock, which is a fairly new company, and he's the former president and CEO of Allen Edmonds Shoe Company. Prior to that, he worked for Goldner Hahn and also Piper Jaffray. So Paul has been around for quite a while. He's seen quite a lot, and very pleased to have him with us today. So Paul, thanks for joining us.
Dale, thank you for having me.
So I think thank you. I'm going to start out with some questions, and I know we only have about 8 minutes left because of my long introduction here, but just in terms of everything you've seen, and you've been around for so many years doing different things in finance and business, what can you look back at, whether it's the Great Recession or different financial turmoil, that you can kind of play off of today, and what can't you when it comes to the COVID-19 situation?
Well, it's interesting. I started my career at the First National Bank of Chicago in 1980, and in 1983, they moved me to Germany to work in their Frankfurt branch. And at that time, there was a tremendous change in political will in Germany. It switched from the Social Democrats to the Christian Democrats, the Conservative Party. Helmut Kohl took over then and was chancellor for many, many years. But while I was there, there was a big controversy about putting Pershing rockets in new Pershing rockets, Pershing 2s, they were called, back into Germany. I won't go into too much detail about that, but I was in Germany when Reagan said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." So I've had a lot of very historic things happen in my career. I started at Piper Jaffray in January of 1986, and just as I was figuring out what I was supposed to be doing, about a year later, we had the crash of 1987 in October, which changed things. Then we had what I think is still the most pivotal motion in the economy in the U.S. over the last 30 years, which is the rise of the hostile takeover trend, junk bonds, and the ability of corporate raiders to go after companies that were not very efficient. And it led to, I think, a very overblown focus on efficiencies in our economy rather than on great customer service and on the true purpose of a company, which is to serve customers and serve employees well. But then we had the terrible 9/11 situation and what happened to the financial markets. Then everybody my age remembers where they were when they heard about that and first saw the planes flying into the World Trade Center. And then the crash of 2008, 2009, and the Great Recession, and now this. And I have to say, nothing in my entire lifetime compares to this. I think it's more similar to something that left a great scar and impact on my parents, who were both older children during the Great Depression and what they saw in the 1930s. And then World War II. I think we're experiencing something that hasn't been experienced since the end of World War II in terms of its severity and how broadly felt it is.
So what have you been able to do? Faribault Woolen Mill, you came into fairly recently. And what have you been able to do there to both keep things going, but also to try to figure out what are you going to do this fall and this winter? as things start to relax and you start getting out there again with retail? How are you going to do that?
Well, in both cases, it's all about getting back to the customer. I have been preaching at the company that we need to think from the marketplace backwards towards us. We've been guilty of thinking of what are our capabilities, how do we do things here, how have we always done things here, and expecting that we can go forward to the marketplace with that. And that has led us to have some products that are fantastic and other products that just don't thrill our customers the way they should. So how are we going to go forward from here? We're going to focus really hard on being great at what our customers need and want from us. And that sounds like common sense. It sounds like maybe not even that hard to do, but it turns out that is a new mentality and it's a new thing. And I've seen, when I was an investment banker, I saw a lot of different companies. That's one of the advantages of being a banker, a consultant, or a lawyer. You get to work with a lot of different management teams, a lot of different companies. And I can assure you from that experience, as well as what I saw when I went to Allen Edmonds and now here in this situation, thinking from the customer back towards the company rather than the other way around is much rarer than you would expect. The other thing we're doing is we're taking our e-commerce game into the second decade of now the third decade of the 21st century. A lot of companies play e-commerce but don't know how to do it. They think that they have a website. Reminds me of a great scene in Eddie Murphy's Beverly Hills Cop. You guys got your guns and your badges and you're on the job. You don't know nothing about nothing, do you? And a lot of a lot of people who have internet sites really don't know how to manage them, how to present their products on the internet, and how to go after the business that might be available if they had a strong social media presence, had a strong digital marketing strategy to go along with that website. And we're going to work that very hard here this fall. We've had to close our stores. We don't know when we'll be able to open them again. So it's all about the internet for us.
Yeah, and for viewers and listeners, Paul has an excellent background and story about what he just talked about with what he did with Allen Edmonds. So if you have a chance to do some research on that, please check that out, because he really did bring that back from a tough situation using the internet and also brick and mortar. It was kind of an interesting combination. And Paul, thinking about that, what's your take on what's going to happen with retail? And you're still going to have a retail presence, but how do you plan to address that going into the holiday season?
I think there's going to be a retro motion, sort of back to the future. I think boutiques will be strong again. I think there will be new places to shop where we already go frequently. I think coffee shops are going to be turning into much broader retail outlets. We've seen retail outlets put coffee services into their stores as a way to serve their customers and they get them to come in and stay longer. But I think the reverse is now going to happen. We're very close to Caribou Coffee, and I think you'll see Caribou evolve its business plan. There'll be a lot of pop-up stores. Many retail companies are seasonal and have had to put up with a demand by landlords that they have a full year lease and pay rent all year long. And I think there'll be a tremendous amount of excess space now available in retail centers, and companies will be able to do pop-up stores during their high seasons. We'll see a tremendous amount of decline in long, old, and just no longer that relevant retailers who have been hanging on, taking on way too much debt, and have been unable to convert. It's always an advantage to be small and not have to undo what you've built over a 30 or 50-year time frame before you try something new. And a lot of these really big retailers with their legacy stores and their legacy debt are going to be in a lot of trouble.
Paula, we're running close to running out of time here, but before we have to go, I wanted to just ask you two last questions. One is, how are you leading people right now? When it comes to the folks who haven't seen things like 9/11 and the folks who have, how are you leading, and how is your leadership style changing?
Well, I'm a huge believer that hierarchies are no longer all that effective. We learned in the post-Vietnam era to question authority at a level that previous generations never did. If you want your employees to follow you, you need to work closely with them, ask their opinion, communicate with them, and throw out the idea that so-and-so reports to so-and-so, and then that person is allowed to talk to the next person up the chain. I think leadership today is all about being accessible, and what we're learning in COVID, Zoom, the internet, conference calls allows a leader to be much more involved. I also think emails to your employees where you write and tell them what you're thinking on a more regular basis are also very important today. It's really important to be accessible and visible as a leader, and to be seen as an authentic person. So somebody they wouldn't mind getting stuck in an airport with, which has often not been the case with the old CEO is emperor kind of strategies. So it's about communicating heavily, I think, and using all the vehicles for communication. I think that's going to continue now. We're learning new things, and working from home is going to be more frequent. Now, I think of the amount of time I spent in a car commuting, and now I can spend it either working or taking better care of myself and my family. And it doesn't mean I won't go to the office regularly. I will, but it won't be every single day, and it won't be for 10 to 12 hours anymore.
Well, we're out of time, but one last question is, what should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
You know, I think the big question for today is how long is this going to last? And I think, you know, I'm a guy who likes to have an answer to a question from somebody like you, Dale. And the answer to that question is, who knows? And I think people who are pretending they know are just not being very genuine with the people who they're responding to. We don't know how long this is going to last, but what we do know is it's going to be a long time, and it's going to have tremendous impact on how we do things and how we live our lives in this country. So we need to get ready for that, and we need to focus on the really important things in a business and really important things in life.
Well, with that, we'll wrap up this one take with Chairman and CEO of Faribault Woolen Mill, Paul Grangaard. Paul, thank you again for joining us today. And I also want to thank everybody who tuned in. This is the first of a series of CEO interviews, one takes, and we'll be doing these once a week. So thank you for joining us today.